navy blue of Victoria.
Uses his feet and goes again through mid-wicket. That's an even better shot from the Victorian captain.
Swept away very nicely by Nicole Bolton for four.
Oh, he's been given! That is 50. The man from Northcote.
Okay, welcome to the latest edition of the Vic State Cricket Podcast. I'm Adam White and we're joined by Marcus Harris. There is so much to talk to Marcus about and he hasn't even really started his Victorian season yet. So, as I said, plenty to talk to you about. Marcus, welcome.
Thank you, Whitey.
Lot to talk to you about. Firstly, congratulations. You're a dad.
Yeah, thank you, mate. It's been it's been a good couple of weeks. We had Max on the 22nd of September, so I think we're 2 and a bit weeks in, and it's been busy, but it's been obviously the best thing ever. Anyone that's ever had a kid knows what it's like. So it's just been brilliant. It's been so good to be home with Kat for the last couple of weeks and with Max. So it's obviously life-changing, but yeah, it's been brilliant.
You would have been told so many times what to expect, but when Max comes, what's it been like? Is it what you thought it would be?
Honestly, I wasn't too sure what it was going to be like. I was one of, or end up being 5 with stepsisters and normal sisters and whatever else, and then my older sister Kate's had 3 kids, so I've had a bit of experience with kids, but yeah, we've been lucky so far. Touch wood that Max has been pretty good. We were lucky enough to be in a brilliant hospital over at the Epworth near the G there, so we got plenty of help, and yeah, it's been good. You're always learning on the go. Like the kid, he's never the same every day, so whatever routine you think you have sort of goes out the window. But we're learning day by day. But yeah, it's been good.
And how's Kat going as a mum?
Yeah, she's good. Really good actually. She gives me the nights off, which is really good. So I get from midnight to about 5:30, which is really good. Which is the quickest 5.5 hours in the world, but I still get 5.5 hours, which is brilliant. But yeah, she's been really good. She's been like a duck to water. It wasn't the easiest pregnancy in the world for Kat. She couldn't come to England, so we were apart for 4 months. Had a few dramas, but we got there in the end, and yeah, she's doing really well.
And what's married life like? It's been if that's what you're telling me. 4 months apart when you only got married. What, back in March?
I got married the week before the Shield final.
Yeah.
So we'd been in Perth just before that. And then I got married, and then we went back to Perth for the Shield final, and then I literally came home and went straight to England. So we've probably been together for a month and a half of the 6 months that we've been married. So, but no, it's been good. Yeah, Kat's a star, and luckily her mum's in a position where she can come over and stay with us for long periods of time and help out, which has been really good, and we're very grateful for. So it's been good. But like I said, it's been great to be home since start of August, and we've had 2 months at home pretty much, which has been really good.
I wanted to talk to you about that because life as a professional cricketer sounds really exciting, and you get to play cricket for your country, you get to play for your state, you get to play on TV, play on the best grounds in the world. But sometimes it can be a bit tough. Now, you've gone through a period of time until August where you just played non-stop cricket for probably 2 or 3 years minimum without really a break. What's that like? Do you get sick of cricket?
Well, it's funny. I think sometimes you have periods of time where you feel a bit worn out and feel like you need a break. But then, like now, for example, I'm itching to get back out there and I'm really chomping at the bit to play. I played the 2 one-day games, but haven't played any red ball cricket pretty much since I think my last county game was end of May, start of June. So it's been a while. But it's just, I think, once you've done like 7 or 8 or 9 pre-seasons, you sort of know that you're not missing out on much, and it's much better to be playing all the time. So I'm fortunate enough that I've been able to go over to England the last few years and play county cricket. I've enjoyed that. But then along with that is I've had 2 pretty long stints away from Kat, which is tough, but I'm lucky that she's very understanding and encourages me to play my cricket. But yeah, you have periods of time where you think it's tough, but then you put it in perspective, and you got mates that have got jobs they don't like or doing things they don't enjoy, and I'm luckily playing cricket, so I think I'm pretty lucky.
Could it be a bit of a blessing to have that break? I mean, I want to talk to you about your role with the Ashes, but having that sort of period of time where you're not actually in intense cricket mode going into a new season to freshen up, can you see advantages in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I hadn't had a break for probably 3 years. I think last season I flew back into Melbourne on the Monday and played on the Friday sort of thing. And and then the season before that it was COVID and I played full season of county cricket. So I think I'll be better for it. But once the season starts, you're sort of chomping at the bit a little bit to get back out there, which is really good. Which means I'm keen for and up for it. So I'm just looking forward to it. But I think the break, a couple of months off. I didn't really want to watch any cricket. I sort of locked into the footy a bit and enjoyed that. It was good being home for the last month of the season and of the month of the finals. So I've enjoyed that. But I'm ready to get back into it.
What was your role with the Ashes? We'll go back to your county stint afterwards, but just take us through what it's like to be on the tour but not actually playing.
It's pretty good. Like, we got a great group. It's a great group of men players. Everyone, the staff are brilliant. So it's a fun trip. I think from the start of when I first spoke to George, probably in, I don't know when that was. It must have been May. It was sort of like, this is what we're going to start with. But you could literally be coming in the next test, and it was sort of the same the whole series. So you're sort of getting ready every test. And then, like, you sort of, if nowadays with the concussion stuff, you sort of got to be ready all the time. So you're always preparing. But then you get to the end of the, 6 tests, because we had the test championship as well. And you're like, oh, well, I haven't actually played any cricket. But it was just great to be a part of. I love being over there. I love being in England. I love being with the group. It was great to have some success over there as a team again. And I think last time we did this podcast was probably, I don't know, February or March.
Yeah, about that,
I think we was talking a lot about the Ashes and what it might be. And I wasn't sure what to expect, and I've probably come out the back of it still a bit in the same boat, as in, like, I didn't get to play or anything like that, but I think I'm still in a strong position for my Australian career going forward. It's just a matter of time of how things unfold in the next few months. But it was great to be a part of, and it's great to be around. And I know England play the game a different way now, but just to see the way that the crowds and everyone got involved in it with, there's positivity, there's negativity, but there's always engagement. So I think that was brilliant.
I'll get to what this season looks like a little bit later on, but that experience of preparing to play when you're probably not going to play, can that be mentally exhausting, even though you aren't actually playing? That whole, if someone gets hit on the gloves in the net, you're just checking to see who it is, or seeing who's in form, who's out of form, being a good teammate to try and keep people in form, which might mean you don't get a chance, but that whole squad mentality. I'd love to know a little bit about what that's like and how you can enhance your reputation as a cricketer and as a teammate by doing that job well.
Well, I think the challenge of it is as the next bloke in all the time, is trying not to, like, I came into that series, I felt like I was in really good form. I'd finished off my county stint well, so I knew I was in good touch. So just keeping up and maintaining what I was doing. But you're only doing that in the nets, but that's all you can do, but that's fine. I think once you've played a lot of cricket, you don't need to be playing cricket all the time to be able to know that you feel all right. So I was wary of that and not trying to actually overdo it in the nets and be in there for hours on end, and you can almost back yourself into find problems that aren't there and etc. So I think the good thing is with those two is there's 6 or 7 blokes that aren't playing, so you've got a good core group that can train all the time. So that's all part and parcel of the challenge, and trying not to overthink it too much, and just being prepared. And if you don't play, well, then you don't play. But and I think the second part of it is, and I think I learned this from probably Mitch Marsh in 2019, and I've learned it going forward, that I haven't played a test match for a couple of years now, but I've been in the squad the whole time. So just trying to be a good tourist and a good teammate, and hopefully someone that they enjoy being around. And I had actually I felt like a messenger in one sort of way, but there's constant communication between the coaches in the change room and messages down to guys on the boundary through a walkie-talkie, and then for me to run out to Paddy or to whoever. So that's it feels like an important sort of role to communicate, and sometimes you got to know the difference of, like, okay, they've said this, but do I say it to Paddy like that, or do I try and a little bit like a runner in the footy in a way?
That's right.
So I enjoyed that, just being a part of it, and luckily with the way the group is now, Paddy's very open to he wants the feedback and the ideas from Ronnie or Dan Victoria or whoever it is up there. So I found that was my role, that was the role I was playing throughout the Ashes, and I wanted to play, but You know, I didn't get the chance to play, but I still had a role to play with, you know, helping out with messages and ideas and things they could do in the field and whatever else. So, yeah, like I said, you just try and be a good tourist and do the right thing all the time. And I think you find, I think like you've seen with Mitch, like Mitch is always around. And then, you know, when his time comes, the boys celebrate when he does well.
And he was amazing in that second test when he had no thought that he'd be playing. And a little bit like that with Todd. He never thought he was playing. We talked to him a couple of weeks ago and he's at the market somewhere in London and all of a sudden finds out that Nathan Lyon, who never gets injured. And then you've just got to be ready. I can't imagine. It's almost like a firefighter. You got to be ready, but you just never know if and when that opportunity can come.
Well, I think you've seen like I said, I've been in the test squad now the last 2 summers and haven't had the opportunity hasn't come up, but that's through no fault of anyone, just the way that it is. But then you see with Marn, he's probably test career started with it. He went on an Australia A series because someone got injured, and then he did well there, and then got picked in the test squad because someone got injured. And then, you know, he came in when Smudger got hit in the head, and, you know, the rest is history. And then the same thing sort of happened with his one-day career, just through being ready to go. So you still want to be in the squad to be able to put yourself in that position. So, yeah, it's just the way that it goes at the moment. But hopefully my time comes.
I know you've been pretty close with Davey Warner through your time in the Australian setup, and despite being a left-handed opening batsman, and David's been very complimentary of you publicly about being the next in line. Is there anything that you're able to learn from him, even just through the last period of time, in the ironic situation where he's trying to cling on to his position as an opening batsman, where you might then come in for him, but the pressure that he has to deal with, the constant talk about his future, and there's constant talk about your future as well, but it's more a positive conversation. Do you have conversations with him about that sort of thing and how to deal with all of that and the noise versus the actual reality as well?
I think the thing I admire so much about Davey is that he's a divisive sort of figure, and he generates a lot of conversation, and I think sometimes he actually really enjoys that, and it sort of drives him on a little bit. But his resilience to be able to come back from what he did, from what happened a few years ago with the South African stuff, obviously brilliant player before that. But then to even be able to come back from all that with everything being, with what happened, and then now to be able to still perform at a level where they see that he's fit enough to play Test cricket and to be able to deal with all the other stuff that's going on as well. I think it speaks to his character. And I think you have to have a certain level of resilience to even be able to play for Australia in the first place, let alone with all the talk around with the opinion on what Davey should be doing, or, you know, however else. It's just he deals with it really well. So I've admired the way that he does that, and sort of that fuels him on when people sort of write him off. And I think sometimes he sort of eggs people on to do it a little bit just to get him going a bit. But, yeah, he's a constant conversation starter, but I think he doesn't mind it.
Are there other players that are like that fuel off the speculation or fuel off the intensity, or is he just a one of a kind when it comes to that sort of thing? Because I find that hard to come to terms with for you as a professional cricketer, and we've talked about this before, about so much talk about you that walking out to bat of what's going through your mind to keep all that at bay and just watch that red ball.
I think the thing is that there's blokes that will read into everything that's written about them, and will, you know, sort of go back at them and stand up for what they think. And then there'll be guys that don't really worry about it or don't buy into it, that don't read every article that's written. Like Josh Hazlewood hasn't got social media. So you could write, or like, you know, he wouldn't really know if someone's written something about him or if someone's had a negative opinion or whatever. And Paddy must be very good at blocking things out, because the amount of opinion that's had on what he's doing all the time and how much it chops and changes all the time. Like in England, he went from being the greatest Australian captain ever after winning the Test Championship final and the first 2 tests, all of a sudden has no idea what he's doing, and he can't bowl a hoop down a hill, and he can't do this and he can't do that, but he still finds a way to block it out. So everyone's got their own different little ways. Uzi sort of has his relaxed manner and does his own things. Smudge is just a different person. He's just on a different level. I think he's so worried about his batting and whatever else he's doing that he doesn't even read into anything. So yeah, everyone's just a little bit different. Heady, it's just Heady's Heady. Just goes out there, has a good time, smacks him, and comes back and he's the funniest bloke in the change rooms and he's great. So I just think everyone's different. They got a different way of coping with it. And then I also know from experience, so what you see in the change rooms is not always what's going to be happening back at home or in their hotel room at night. They might be dealing with it in a different way.
Yep.
But that's the challenge of professional sport.
Yeah. No, I find it fascinating. Two more on the Ashes experience. Going out and having to substitute field when you've been sitting down for 3 days, and it's like, can you go on for 10 minutes? What's that like? Because I often think of, geez, you know, what if one comes to you and you got to catch it? It could be a really, really important moment in the match, and you've just been sitting down talking rubbish with your teammates for 2 days.
Well,
how do you switch on?
I'll probably be the first to admit that I'm no Jonty Rhodes in the field or anything like that, but I think I can hold my own. But Ronnie sort of says to me, he's like, you can deal with the abuse of the crowd, so you're going to go out there and, like, you're not going to shit yourself. So I'm like, oh, well, thanks a lot, mate. So, yeah, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking sometimes, especially in England when the crowds are, like, boisterous and, like, they abuse you, like, proper abuse. And the last thing you want to do is muck up. So, but, you know, like, you go out there and you try your best and, you know, if something goes wrong, everyone knows you didn't try to. But it was quite funny during the Ashes. We would sort of have, because there was 6 of us, we'd sort of have 2 groups of 3. So we'd have like a morning group and an arvo group, and we'd have one designated fielder in the morning and one designated fielder in the arvo. And I'd more often not be stuck with Scotty Boland and Toddy Murphy. So Barrel rocks up to do 12th man in his joggers so he can't field, which is classic Barrel. And then Toddy refuses to go on the ground. So, like, I get thrown out there. And I said to Toddy, Toddy, what if you play? You got to be out on the field. Like, you got to go out and practice. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. So, it's just, yeah, it's one of those things. I think as you get a bit older and experience a bit more, it's a bit easier to deal with. But the last thing I want to do is drop a catch in front of English supporters, like at Headingley in front of the big stand over there, or at Edgbaston, like in front of the Hollies. So, yeah, it's not the funny thing is when you're fielding, field all day, you don't really think about it. Sub fielder, come on for 5 minutes. Most nervous bloke in the world. But yeah, it gets a bit easier as you get a bit older, but yeah, it's not the greatest thing in the world.
And the Lord's experience, I have to ask you about it because it was almost like you were front and centre, which it wasn't overly surprising that you had you were there when it was all happening. What was that like? I mean, I was lucky enough to be at Lord's in a very different role, and the whole 5 days was just incredible from an intensity point of view. It was like a soccer crowd towards the end of the match at Lord's, which never happens. But you were there going up to have your lunch and got involved in something that we've never seen at Lord's before. What was that all like?
Oh, it was incredible. When obviously Kez threw the stumps down, and I think it must have been about, was it 20 minutes or half an hour before lunch? It was obviously close into the lunch break. And I was sitting down at Lord's, you sort of out the front. We're down on the ground underneath our change rooms. So a bit to the left. So you got to walk back like 40 metres to go in through the long room. And I was sat there with Jimmy Pearce, and obviously the crowd was kicking off a little bit, but we didn't really know too much. Like, not like the keeper's throwing the stumps down, so people aren't going to be happy, but it is what it is. Then he goes, oh, do you reckon the members are going to be kicking off in the long room? I was like, no way. He's like, I reckon they might. I was like, as if, mate. I was like, they're all bloody toffs. They don't care. Like, they're just happy to sit there and watch the cricket and they'll be drinking a beer and doing whatever. And then because obviously the boys that were on the field walked off first, and you could sort of hear the rumblings, and then we were walking across the boundary and people were abusing us. And then we walked in and there was just a wall of old blokes, and there was spit and crap and going everywhere and abuse left, right and centre. And I've never seen anything like it. Just the whole long room. I don't know how many people fit in the long room, but it's a decent amount. It's a big room. And it was just kicking off left, right and centre. And yeah, I can't help myself if someone's having have a go back. But someone kicked Davey Warner, like all sorts of things were going on. But the whole way, because you walk in the long room, you go right, and you go up 2 staircases into our rooms. The whole way up was just abuse the whole way. And I've never experienced anything like it. And I was quick to remind them that they write the rules, and that's in the rule book, and I think the wicket was by the letter of the law, so they've only got themselves to blame. But yeah, I've never seen anything like it. And then you could sort of tell they're all private school kids because they also got told off by the boss at lunchtime, and then the way back out after lunch, they're all pretty quiet and go well, boys, and they shut up pretty quickly. But yeah, it obviously garnered a bit of attention. And then, Johnny in the lunchroom was pretty funny. That I think a few blokes have retold the story pretty well, but in the lunchroom at Lord's, it's pretty famous. Like everyone goes up there. It's the best lunch, just about. It'd be the best lunch there in the MCG, the best lunches in the world. And there's 3 like dining tables, and it's not the biggest room in the world. It wouldn't be much. It'd be the same size as this room. And so we had 2 tables, and then the Poms had 1 table over at the end there. And Johnny came in, and he was fuming. And you can when someone's itching to say something, and they're so worked up, and he's like just waiting, and he's like waiting to make eye contact with someone. And he got Davey's eye, and he's like, "Oh, are you happy with that? Are you happy with that?" Davey's like, "Yeah, very, mate." And just kept eating. He's like, "Shit." Like it's just. It was the greatest thing I've ever seen. One of the great dummy spits, and it was great that it all happened in front of us and everyone saw it. But yeah, and I think I saw this week that a couple of those blokes got expelled or kicked out of the MCC forever, just about. So they probably regret that. But yeah, I think the whole series sort of just was a bit like that. Everyone wanted to have their 2 bobs worth, which was good.
It was, and it probably doesn't happen as much as it used to because you play so much cricket together.
Yeah.
I mean, you're playing county cricket.
Yeah.
You're playing in a number of different teams for England against players, with players, the guys that play the IPL, even the BBL. So do you feel that edge had gone, or when it's Ashes, it's on and it doesn't matter, regardless of what had happened at Lords and even at times at Edgbaston? Has that edge gone a bit, or?
I don't know. I think it was... I think as their teams evolved a little bit over the last couple of years, they've become quite... they talk a lot and they express how they feel and what they think and what they think's the right way to do things. So I think there was always something simmering there a little bit. And I think the way our majority of our group is, we're quite quiet in a way that we'll just sort of go about our business and let our cricket do the talking and let other people talk.
Oh, I think you're spot on because I think the roles have reversed.
Yeah.
It was always Australia that used to talk about we're going to win 5-0,
Yeah.
we've got it over you. And it did, I think, help build this aura about the team. But it was England's time to do all the talking.
Yeah.
And they almost had to convince themselves that they were good enough. And they did that through talk more so than actions, I felt, particularly even early on when
I think
they were 2-0 down.
Yeah, I think when it happened in the series, they were 1-0 down and it looks like they were going to lose the second test. I would have been interested to see if that was maybe in the last test or in the 4th test when they were on top in a test match and were in control of it. Would have it had the same reaction?
Yeah.
Because the media over there chopped and changed so much. They went from they hated Brendan McCullum, they weren't happy with Ben Stokes in the first 2 tests, and then all of a sudden they're the greatest team ever again. So it was chopping and changing a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just I hadn't experienced a team where they were very opinionated, which they got every right to do. They can do whatever they want. And it was just interesting to see how they went about it. But I think credit to them, they stick to their guns and they played some great cricket throughout that series, even after that.
I think my observation, again, from being there and just watching a lot of cricket over the years, is that England play a brand of cricket that makes you emotional about cricket, just the way they play.
Yeah.
And I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think it's the best thing ever because it's that they've always, well, not always, but they've often played a very neutral, sort of boring brand of cricket. Whereas, and I think that's where at times the Australians felt a bit perplexed as to how they were seen from the Australian cricket fans, because it was Australia that wasn't necessarily playing the negative cricket, but they were playing more a defensive brand compared to England, which is uncharacteristic. So it created emotions for all sorts of different reasons.
Well, I think, I'll admit as well, like I remember at Edgbaston when we walked out to bowl on that first morning and we had a deep point and a deep backward square and like 3 blokes out. I was like, what's going on here? And then once you actually sit down and listen to the reasoning behind it, the explanation for it, you go, oh, hang on, this actually makes a bit of sense. Like, and I know a lot of the old boys won't like it and it doesn't look right, but like it actually makes sense of what we're trying to do. And the old mentality of let's have a run on the ring and let's try and, take 2 for 60 in the first session and put them under the pump and, they can't get a 1 here and they can't get a 1 there. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. These wickets were so flat. They were the flattest wickets I've ever seen. I think the wicket at Edgbaston on day 1 had the least amount of seam movement ever off a wicket. And this is in England with a Duke ball. So it was just a different way of going about it. And it was more about we've got to try and control the scoreboard as much as we can. And the end goal is what their total is going to be, not so much what the run rate's going to be. So if they make 280 But at 7 and over, so be it, they've only made 280. And luckily in that first test that Stokesy wanted to dangle the carrot with the declaration, and that brought us into the game. But I think like we saw, like in those first 2 tests it worked perfectly, and the third test it worked. We arguably should have won that third test as well.
Yeah.
And then in the last test we have, the situation with the ball. So you say 4 out of the 5 tests we're in a position to win the match. So you go, well, probably giving ourselves a good chance of winning the match. And yes, don't get me wrong, there's things in the game where things aren't going your way, but that's going to happen when teams play like that. There's going to be periods of play where they're on top.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the reality is the scores are there.
Yeah.
Not at any point did the game get away from you with
Yeah.
the way England chose to play, because the scoreboard suggests that. There was no 500s, there was no 400s. And really, I think if Australia had batted better, it's probably 4-1.
Well, I think like you see now, like cricket's changing. So teams are going to make runs like that and they're going to score quickly. See at the World Cup, teams are making 400 now and then teams are making 350 in reply, and it's like no one blinks an eyelid.
Yep.
So just the way that it is. And I think us as a cricket public have just got to catch up with the times a little bit, and it's going to take a little while, but so be it. But I think what was really good and what kept getting, told to us by the coaches and by the captains and whatever was, we still play our way. We don't have to try and play the way England plays. We still play our cricket,
Yes.
and we take it on head to head, and we'll see who comes out on top at the end. And I think a
that's
draw
good.
probably, he says, well, you can still play this way and you can play that way, and then
Exactly
if you
right.
wanted something in the middle, then so
Spot
be
on,
it. Yeah.
100%. So your own self, you went to Gloucester for a second year, had a really good year last year, and you're having another good year until it obviously was cut short for obvious reasons that we've discussed. So coming back to play for Victoria this year, how are you feeling about your cricket?
Yeah, good. I've never seen so much rain in my life at Gloucester the first 6 weeks. I think we lost, it was something stupid like 900 overs or something. We had a full game washed out. Every game was rain affected besides the last game. So, but I was really confident coming into the Ashes. I felt really good, had a good 5 games. And then I didn't play. So I got to August and I was like, oh yeah, well, go home now. And but it's good to have a break. And just feel like, had the first 2 one-day games. And they were obviously during the first week of Max's life, so my eyes were hanging out of my head, both of those innings. But it was just nice to spend some time in the middle and play. But yeah, I feel really good. I'm energised. I'm really chomping at the bit to get out there on Saturday. I'm just looking forward to it. I think once you have kids, it puts a little bit of a different perspective on it. Like, I want to play for Australia and I want to open the batting and I want to do all that sort of stuff. But I think now, like, the biggest goal is I just want to be able to have Max watch me play cricket at some sort of level. So that's my goal now. And, hopefully I've got a few more years in me so he can watch me so he's old enough to remember. But, yeah, the season, I think there's always going to be, I'm in that position again where there's going to be speculation around spots, and I'm going to be one of those people that they speak about. But I think, like I've spoken to you about before, I think I've probably had 5, 6, 7 years now of consistent performances, so here and in England. So that stuff will sort itself out. It'll up to George and Dodders and Ronnie whenever they want to make the call. But yeah, it'll be what it'll be.
So when we talked last time, which was the middle of last season, we talked about goals that you have.
Yeah.
Have you got any for the new season? Any things that you're prepared to share? And then I'll ask another question after you answer that one.
Nothing specifically that I've written down as of yet. I've still got a couple of days before the Shield season starts, but I just think like I've sort of in the last 18 months has just been trying to enjoy my cricket as much as I can. Enjoy being around the Test squad. So I try to have as much fun as I could at the Ashes, which I had a great time. And just the same with Victoria, trying to have a great time. We got a young, evolving group. And I think you got to try and evolve with the group, and so I try and make an effort of having a good time and having a joke, and but also being a leader. So it's just that, and then trying to win some games. I think it stings a bit, like when the boys are in Perth this week and they're having a tough time of it, and I'm not there. It's obviously for a good reason that I'm not there, but you're like, wish I was there to help. But so just trying to play some match-winning innings like I have in the past, and the goal is always to play for Australia, and there's going to be an opportunity in the next period of time, but we'll see what happens. I think you can't put too much pressure on yourself with all that stuff. And I think, like I've said to you before, I've been fortunate now in the last few years to have the opportunity to play in Australia and England, so no matter what, I'm playing cricket 12 months of the year and enjoying that. So that's probably still what it is going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's a body of work now. And when me, as being part of the media, you talk about the people that might replace David, and this is the reality of it now, is that this isn't about if David Warner loses form. He's marked his own end point. So whether that is going to be for the West Indies series or whether it's going to be before then, it's there. There's a spot there. It's an opening batting spot. You're an opening batsman. So I'd imagine that there is that element of butterflies of, geez, it's real now. It's game on. But it is you, but it could be Bancroft, who's already got 100 to start the summer. You got Renshaw, whose name's been talked about, and he was in the Ashes squad as well. So it's not like it's yours, but in a way you have been next in line now for a couple of years. So I'm just interested in your thought process around not so much the anxiousness, but this, I've got to stay that next cab off the rank. Yeah. I've had it for 2 years. I've got to hang on that little bit longer.
Well, I've pretty much had it since when I debuted in 2018. So I've had it for 5 years. Yeah. So it's just the way that it is. It's just the story of the way my career's gone so far. But it could be worse. You could be out in the wilderness and not spoken about at all. So I look at the speculation as a privilege that people want to speak about me, and whether it's a positive opinion or a negative opinion, so be it. I think the thing with it this time is that with Davey saying that he's going to be done after the Pakistan series, it sort of like that's the end point. So there's a position there going forward, and then Uz is still playing really good. Uz is still playing unbelievable cricket, so he can go for as long as he wants. But he's obviously got age, not in his corner. So there's positions there to be had in the next couple of years, but it's up to performance. But like I said, I've strung good seasons together for 6 or 7 years now, and I think some of the other people maybe haven't done it as well, but I don't need to do a job interview for myself in a batting position. But I think, like we've seen with George and Ron and Dodd, they've sort of had me around for the last few years, which doesn't guarantee anything, but I think it probably helps.
I think Sam Harper, I spoke to him last week and we were talking about you, and he was saying that he's almost urging, it was in an interview, so it wasn't sort of a chat on the golf course or anything, but it was almost urging cricket fans to look at Marcus's body of work over a period of time and not judge on what happens in the first 2 or 3 Shield matches. Yeah. Which I think is quite instructional. So, and again, without trying to put negative thoughts in your own mind, but do you think much of it? Like, if, say for example, it's here in a couple of weeks' time, back at a place you love so much, you're 32 not out. Are you thinking, right, this is a platform here to are those minds going through, this is a chance to really sort of, put my name up in lights? Or are you actually because I'm thinking that as a fan of yours, but are you so single-minded in the way you are as a professional cricketer that you're not thinking that, you're just thinking the next ball?
You sound like my dad. I think as you get older, get a bit more experience and you get more used to it, that it's easier to deal with. The thoughts can come into your mind, but maybe you can get rid of the thought a bit quicker. I know I've had when I first experienced was in 2018, I made 250. I was like, I might be a chance of getting picked in the test team. Now I've got to keep making runs though, because I don't want to get it's the first time I've ever been spoken about in that sort of light. So, but now I think since then, I've probably nearly made 2,000. So I've made 2,000 since I've been spoken about as a chance or picked in the test side. So I've dealt with it for 5 years now. So it's just part and parcel of what it is.
Yeah. And
if you don't make any runs, and then you got no one to blame. But then if you make runs, that puts yourself in the position to be able to be spoken about. And but like you've said, and like you say, it's a body of work over a period of time. There's always the recency bias to a lot of things. But then also there's a period of there's a body of work, someone that's done work over 6 or 7 years time or whatever. So it all sort itself out.
It's a unique thing though, being an opening batsman. I've spoken to your coach about this, Chris Rogers, when he was playing for Australia. And I think I'm trying to find this as a way to get a message for young players coming through that might be playing Premier cricket for the first time, sub-district cricket for the first time in their school first 11 team, is that as an opening batsman, there are times where you're just going to get a good ball. That doesn't mean whether you're in or out of form, nicking to second slip or getting on that takes the top of off stump before your innings is started. That's just part and parcel of being an opener versus potentially being a number 4 or number 5.
Well, I think that's how you see people deal with low scores and stuff like that, and how they can bounce back. I think in this especially, I think the best example of it is Uzi. Like his last 2 years has been unbelievable. But you'll see that he'll have a little like run of 3 or 4 scores of not much, and then he'll make 190. And that says to me that he's not worried about, nicking off or getting a good ball, and he's trusting his process, and he knows what he's doing is right, and he backs in what he's doing, and he just trusts his game that he'll be able to, put things into play when he's playing, and then you go out and bat and you play, and you don't think about all that other stuff. And I said to Ronnie in England, there was a little bit of speculation around when Mitch got the 100, so they were trying to bring everyone back into the team and trying to work out where everyone goes, and people were throwing up all sorts of ideas for opening the batting. And I said to Ron, I said, I don't care what you do, but I said, don't pick someone that's never opened the batting, because it's not fair. And not on me, but it's not fair on them.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy job to do. And some people can make it look really easy, like Davey's made it look really easy at times, but also it can be the worst job in the world.
Yeah.
Like you field for like you saw the boys the other day in WA fielded for 150 overs, and you got to go out and bat, and like the bowlers have had their feet up for 2 days, and you're like, you got to go and cop it. But that's just what you sign up for, and that's like what Dad said to me when I was young. He goes, open the batting because no one wants to do it. So you're half all right. There's 2 spots in every team, so there's 2 spots where everyone wants to bat 3 or 4. So that's just, it is what it is. Like you got to be able to deal with it, and I remember playing with Michael Carberry at the Scorchers.
Yep.
Very good. Only had a very short Test career, but which was unfortunate. He just played at the wrong time in England. We're all over the shop a bit, but very successful county cricketer. And he always said to me, he's like, Harry, like if you're an opening batter, if you get to 60 or 70, you got to get to 100, because all the days when we miss out on a fresh wicket in the first thing in the morning with the new ball, you got to fill up on the days when So that's what just, like you said, when you're 30 not out, you're like, rightio, like I want to get 100 and I want to make a big 100. Yeah. And it is what it is.
Is that part of you? I mean, you're 31 now.
Yeah.
Just turned 31. I mean, Mike Hussey didn't start his international career until a similar sort of age, but everyone tells you as you get older, you get more experienced, and it's more the mental side of the game, the decision-making process that becomes easy because you know your game. So I was going to ask you about, well, are you going to come into the new season? Have you got a new stance? Is your backlift going to a different position? But kind of feel you've got to a point, you know your game, you know that it stacks up. It's just about consistently doing the same thing. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't think I've got any new tricks in my bag that anyone hasn't seen, but I think it's just it's more the mental side of it now. It's being able to deal with what you're dealing with, I think, and never being satisfied with what you're doing. Like I think when I was younger, if I got 60 or 70, I'd be really happy, and I'd be like, I'll go out next dig and try and bloody flog them from ball 1, and if I get out for 20, then who cares? But I'm like, no, I want to get 100, and I want to get 150, and I want to get 200. So it's just having that drive to want to succeed and want to do well all the time, and never being satisfied with what you're doing. And just, and accepting if you have a tough day that, you got another chance. Like there's 2 innings in every 4-day game, so you got 2 chances. And then if that game doesn't go to plan, then well, so be it. When I get in again, make sure I get a big score, and that ends up sorting itself out anyway. So, And I think now the great thing is that now with having a kid, like it's such a great, almost like a distraction in a way that like I go home and I can't worry about what's happened to cricket because I've got to look after him. So,
well, I'm going to sound an old man here, but it's called perspective.
Yeah. So I'm just, and I think you see a lot with guys once they have kids, how their careers sort of can go to another level.
Yeah, definitely.
I think like you've seen with Hetty in the last 12 to 18 months, he's had a kid and gone really well. Scotty Boland's had 2 kids and, gone to the moon. Like I think Baz is 34 and bowling as good as ever. You see it a lot with guys once they have kids. Manus, there's lots of examples of it. So I just think there can be such a great thing. Obviously, they're great to have as well, but they can just help with putting things in perspective for you.
Wait till they get a bit old and they start sledging you when they're getting you out in the backyard. That'll happen. Last one, the Victorian experience I thought was I keep using the word intoxicating in the second half of last year, going on that role with such a young team and all those sorts of things. Can that help you as well now? You are one of the senior players in the team, so they're probably keeping you young at heart as well, but also that overarching leadership role that you go and have. You don't have to be captain to have a leadership role where it can actually help your own cricket because you're sort of helping develop the next generation as well, and your own cricket kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, it's infectious with the young guys. Like you see, with Southo as captain, you see Mitch Perry, you have Campbell in there, and all the other young guys that can't, Ferg, who we did the podcast with last time. So you see all these young guys come in and doing well, and the energy that they have, it's infectious. And, we're going to have hiccups along the way, which is what's going to happen with a young group. But I think we did so well last year with a young group with guys that have just started to have that like 10 to 20 game experience where they can actually believe they can do it, that I think we could do anything this year. I think the WACA's always been a tough place to go to. So you're going to, like I said, you're going to have a hiccup here and there. But I watch Mitch run in and bowl and, run around in the field, be the best probably night watchman in the country. Like he's a great... he's going to be... Nighthawk. He's better than Stuart Broad. Talk that crap. But I just watch him, I'm like, this is great. Like just watching a kid run around like that. Southo turned into an old man already, being the captain and grumpy guts. But he's been really good for the young blokes just to have that connection. So I just think we've got an exciting group. I think it'll be good for Pete just to be able to go out and bat and stand at slip and take hangers and not have to worry about all the other stuff. And then you sprinkle in us older blokes. Like you see Deanie do really well last week, which was great. Obviously having Puck back as well. And then you add in Nick Maddinson as well, hopefully soon. We've got all the makings of a really good team. And Sids is going to be unbelievable for us. He already has been. He's got a great personality. He's really good at fitting in with the younger boys, did he? So I just think we've got all the makings to have a great team. And I think we've spoken about before, on a journey and all this sort of stuff. But I think now, it's time to start winning stuff. We've got into the last 2 Shield finals, so there's no reason why we can't, give it a shake and hopefully finish on top so you get WA away from the WACA. But we'll be better for the experience. And, those young boys now, and they're, I don't know how many games Pez or Southo have played. It wouldn't be any more than 30. They've already played 2 Shield finals, so that's brilliant for them. So it is great. We've got a great group, so it's going to be exciting times ahead just to see how everyone goes, and there's opportunities everywhere for everyone. So, but no, it's great.
Well, thank you for having a chat. It's so exciting what potentially might happen for you personally this year. It's there for you. I hope it starts well for you this week against Queensland up in Mackay. But just throughout the next 12 months, good luck with it all. I know there's a lot of Victorian cricket fans like me that are really hoping it's going to be a big year for Marcus Harris, and hopefully it's a big year for Victorian cricket as well, and you can get the daily double.
Thank you, Whitey.
There you go, Marcus Harris joining us on the Vic State Cricket Podcast. He'll be back in action on Saturday against Queensland, that game in Mackay. Let's hope the Victorians can bounce back after what happened in WA. We'll catch you next time.